Lights in the sky. What are they? Are they reflections of things on the ground? Are they atmospheric conditions? Join us today on Speaking of Spirits as we discuss the Marfa lights and other unexplained lights in the sky.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Speaking of Spirits. Tonight we are talking about the Marfa and other spooky lights that are out there. I'm Colleen O'Hara, and this is Speaking of Spirits, and I'm here with my sidekick, Tim.
Woo! Happy to be here.
Sidekick, Shelby.
Hello.
And tonight we are talking about Marfa lights and other light phenomenon. Probably everybody's heard of Marfa lights. I know that Miranda Lambert just has a Marfa light album cover or something like that, or Marfa project or whatever it's called. The Marfa lights are in West Texas and otherwise known as the Marfa ghost lights. They've been observed near U.S. Route 67 on Mitchell Flat, east of Marfa, Texas, in the United States. They have gained some fame. A lot of paranormal investigators, ufologists, and whatnot have gone down there to see them because nobody really knows what they are. Although there were some University of Texas students who said they debunked them. They said it's just headlights. But when you are in Marfa and you're standing, you can see a long way because there's a whole lot of nothing out there.
They say in Texas, if you stand on a can of tuna, you can see the back of your head.
That's good. And so I've gone to Marfa and I've seen the lights. If they're headlights, the cars never showed up.
Yeah.
That's what's interesting to me. If it's headlights going one direction, you would assume if you're there long enough, the car would then approach you. Cars never are there. They never came towards me. So I don't, the lights are most often reported as distant spots of brightness, distinguishable from ranch lights and automobile headlights on Highway 67, primarily by their aberrant movements. So the Texas students, the university, I don't know if it was Texas Tech or what university who did this, this looking at Marfa lights, but they think it was atmospheric phenomenon, like an inversion layer that twists and bends light a little bit, that it is a headlight, but the atmosphere, like when you see a heat wave, that kind of thing come off hot cement, that you'll get these maybe heat waves or an inversion from the sky, cloud layer or whatnot, that it's bending light a little bit maybe as the cars are moving. But again, I've parked on the side of the highway and I've watched and I've seen light and never saw a vehicle. So I do know there is a phenomenon that as an air traffic controller, I saw this in the tower. When at night controlling airplanes, from when you're looking out from the control tower, it's really, really hard to gauge the distance. So an aircraft could be 3 miles inbound for an approach, and you're seeing it on, they call it the brands. It looks like a radar display in the tower, so you can see exactly where that airplane is. And you know exactly where that airplane is, and you look out the tower window, and it either looks like he's right on top of you or 50 miles away.
Yeah.
So it's a really, I don't know if it's our brain can't wrap distance around because there's no more really horizon. So I don't know. So I don't know if like, should I have waited another 2 hours and that car would have showed up? I don't know. I would be there for several hours watching and I never, I could tell what was a car and what wasn't.
Yeah.
These Marfa lights seem to move around like an orb.
There was, when I was looking them up, 1883 was one of the first reports. So it's like, obviously there wasn't headlights around there. The report was a young cowhand, Robert Reed Ellison, saw a flickering light while trailing cattle through Paisano Pass and wondered if it was an Apache campfire. He then spoke to other settlers, and they told him they often saw them as well, but when they would investigate, no ash or any evidence of a fire was there.
Yeah, and these balls of light can remain stationary, or they move. And they said that they can pulse on and off with an intensity varying from dim to almost blinding in brilliance. Then again, these ghostly lights may dart across the desert or perform splits and mergers, very similar to the lights I saw at the cabin. We just talked about the Bannock Guard Station and the lights that I would see there. So the light colors are usually yellow-orange, and other hues, including green, blue, and red, have been seen. I'm sorry, these aren't headlights. These are not headlights. And yes, you can probably say light does bend a little bit due to atmospheric phenomenon. And yes, they probably did rule out some of the lights as being headlights. Yeah. But as early as the 1880s, no.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
No. And
the first car was made in 1886. So
yeah, but I don't think it was bouncing through the rocks of West Texas, was it?
Yeah.
Well, and it was 3 years before, so
perhaps
it was just a time-traveling car.
And time travel. Well, you never know.
Maybe it was what is that? From Back to the Future.
The DeLorean. Yeah. So, I see that, 1883. And so it was pretty much first published accounts of the lights appeared in July 1957 issue of the Coronet magazine. 1976 Elton Miles' Tales of the Big Bend included stories dating back to the 19th century and a photograph of the Marfa lights by a local rancher. There are 34 sightings of the Marfa lights, sightings from 1945 through 2008. Monitoring stations were put in place in 2003, and they said that they have an average of 9.5 Marfa lights on 5 nights per year at those monitoring stations. But again, when I was out there, and I live close enough that I went out there frequently, and I was able to see them.
They did, I think we might have read the same article. He goes on to say, these stations may only be catching a fraction of the lights.
Well, think about it. It's a station, right? So it's whatever it happens to be in that frame of view. Yeah.
So if you decide to Google the Marfa lights, there's one, and it has the headlight of the car, and it says not Marfa headlights, and then it has them above it, and then it says Marfa lights.
Oh, there you go. Well, so it's fairly, I mean, there's some topography there. It's not completely flat. There's topography out there that I just think it's fascinating. And that's not the only location. So there's the Brown Mountain Lights in North Carolina. The Brown Mountain Lights are purported ghost lights, and a number of travel logs, including some of mysterious happenings and ghost stories, were published in the region prior to 1900. There's no mention of the unexplained lights in any historical sources. Joseph Lovin, who lived next to Lovin's Hotel, what does that sound like right by the hour, said he had first noticed the lights in 1897 but took no interest in them, and he didn't hear anyone else talking about them until his neighbor started talking about them in 1910. Let's see.
Isn't that interesting? No, never mind. That's not the weirdest thing I've seen today.
Yeah, right. I know. Well, so they asked Congress for an investigation, and in 1913 a USGS employee was dispatched to the area and quickly found that headlights of a westbound Southern Railroad locomotive would have been visible from the Lovins Hotel. If you cannot tell a light is from a train coming at you, then you don't need to be reporting on the light. You know what I'm saying? Because locomotive headlights are pretty distinctive.
Yeah.
And they're going on a path every night.
And they're the same color.
Yes.
And the noise accompanied with a train,
I guess there was more than one source of lights, or one type of lights being seen there. It's still to this day unknown whether or not the light source was the train or not. I'm not sure. There's a lot of heated arguments in the area even today. And then there's Gordon Light. It's a mystery light located near railroad tracks in a wooded area of Gordon, Arkansas. It is the subject of local folklore and has been featured in a local media and on Unsolved Mysteries and Mysteries at the Museum.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. Now, I really like Unsolved Mysteries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just the same theme song that does it for me.
Yeah. So the tracks are no longer in use, and the rails, at least partially, have been removed, but it remains this huge attraction. And the light has been, I guess the light is still seen, which would rule out the train since the tracks are removed, unless it's a ghost light,
train,
right? Yeah. It's been described as ranging from blue, green, white to orange, and it has been described as bobbing around. The exact location is said to vary, and witnesses have described it as appearing both day and night. So that kind of rules out a train.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then there's the Paulding Light, also called the Lights of Paulding or the Dog Meadow Light. Is a light that appears in the valley outside Paulding, Michigan. Reports of the light have appeared since the 1960s, with popular folklore providing such explanation as ghosts, geologic activity, or swamp gas. There is a phenomenon in swampy, marshy areas of swamp gas. Lighting off.
Yeah.
It'll torch itself off. And it'll burn, but it's not... I think it's been described sometimes as balls of light, but it burns, it flares, and then it goes away. It's like releases of methane or something that catch.
There's definitely a difference between fire and light.
I think so. I would think so. The first recorded sighting of the Paulding Light was in 1966 when a group of teenagers reported the light to a local sheriff. Since then, a number of individuals have seen the light, which is said to appear nearly every night in this location.
Oh.
In 2010, students from Michigan Tech, Society of the Photo-Optical Instrumentation Engineers, I had no idea there was such a society, used a telescope to examine the light and were able to see vehicles and stationary objects on a highway. But they hypothesized that the stability of an inversion layer, so this sounds like Marfa, allowed the lights to be visible from a stretch of highway 4.5 miles away. So it's happening day and night, though.
Yeah. So
I'm not sure. And the colors are changing.
Yeah.
Colors of headlights don't change. They're either really bright white or they're dull white, right? So.
Well, it makes you kind of wonder, like, okay, obviously in some of these locations you are going to have headlights, but I almost kind of wonder if they have to, like the ultimate nerd club, need to say, we figured this out,
Well, and I think there's a part of the human psyche that wants to rationalize everything down to, well, we figured this out. When there's are things in this universe that we cannot figure it out. Yeah. We haven't been able to yet. Yeah. And that's okay. Oh, not everything has to have a rational explanation.
Which is hard to accept, though.
Yeah, like the dude that disappeared in front of me on his bike. Yeah. I mean, not everything. I still think he was sucked out of the universe. Then there's the spook light, also called the Hornet spook light, the Hollis light, and the Joplin spook light. It's a ghost light reported to be in a small area known locally as the Devil's Promenade on the border somewhere or between southwestern Missouri and northeastern Oklahoma. So wait a minute, southwestern Missouri and northeastern Oklahoma. Do those two merge?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either, now that I'm looking at it. We'd have to look it up on a map.
We sure would.
Yep, please do that. West of a small town of Hornet, Missouri. Even though it's named after a small unincorporated community in Missouri, and is most easily reached from there, the light is most commonly described as being visible from the Oklahoma border looking west.
By golly, sure
it is.
Oklahoma and Missouri are right there.
But it's West Oklahoma, not East.
Maybe they,
right?
when they
I
were
think
typing it up, maybe they...
I think, yeah, because it's not northeastern. It has to be northwestern Oklahoma. I'm thinking Missouri doesn't wrap around Oklahoma.
Oh, I didn't even know Missouri touched Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I learned something new today.
And is okay, so this area is being described as visible from inside Oklahoma border looking west. The spook light is usually described as a single ball of light or a tight grouping of lights that is said to appear in the area regularly, usually at night. Although the description of the light is similar to other visual phenomenon witnessed throughout the world, the spook light, when standing alone, generally refers to this case. So they've coined the term. Numerous legends exist explaining the origin of the spook light, one of which involves the ghosts of two young Native American lovers looking for each other. According to most accounts, it has appeared continually since the 19th century, although it was generally not well known to anyone but locals until after World War II. Some date the first encounters with the light back to the Trail of Tears of the 1830s. The first documented sighting is generally accepted to have occurred in 1881. Although some reported sightings go back as far as 1866, the earliest published reported dates was 1936 in the Kansas City Star. In 1946, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers studied the Hornet spook light and did not find any cause for it. In their words, it's a mysterious light of unknown origin. Yeah. So, early residents of the area reported seeing lights in the woods over their land or even in their yards. So that's creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I mean, I wasn't creeped out by the lights that I saw down here in Mint Creek. I was more perplexed, and I just wanted to follow them. Mm-hmm. I can't believe I wasn't abducted. Maybe I was.
Never know.
That's what's wrong with you.
So there's also the St. Louis Light. It's called the St. Louis Light, the St. Louis Ghost Light, or the St. Louis Ghost Train. It's a supposed paranormal phenomenon seen near St. Louis, Saskatchewan, Canada. Ooh. Which I didn't even know there was a St. Louis up there.
Me neither.
Yeah. It has been described by witnesses as a huge beam of white light reminiscent of the headlight on an old-fashioned train. Oh. The phenomenon has been featured on the television series Unsolved Mysteries and entails a strange light moving up and down along an old abandoned rail line at night, changing colors and varying in brightness. The line, located south of Prince Albert and north of St. Louis, has had its tracks removed. So there's no longer a train there. Oh. So, ghost train. Dun, dun, dun. Dun, dun, dun.
Always wanted to ride one of those.
Yeah.
I know, right? So, I thought that was interesting. So, modern science has generally accepted that some of these lights are caused by the oxidation of phosphine and diphosphine and methane. These compounds produced in organic decay cause photon emissions. The phosphine and diphosphine mixture spontaneously ignite on contact with oxygen in the air. Only small quantities of it would be needed to ignite. And methane combines with it. In modern science, it's generally accepted that the will-o-wisp phenomenon, which is what they call a lot of these lights, are caused by the oxidation of these chemicals. So, but that's an organic decay, and not all these locations, some of them are very dry. Marfa's very dry.
Oh, yeah.
Missouri, Western Oklahoma is very dry. I don't know when it butts up to Missouri right there, what it's like, but I'm not sure I buy that for all of these locations.
No. Well, and especially how some of them are during the day and how the different colors and how they can move. Now, when I think of it, I think of the movie Willow, like the swamp gas, like burning, you know? Mm-hmm. So but I know these not in the movie, but in real life are very stationary, like flutters, and then it's done.
Right.
Kind of thing. So that
then the trolls turn into dragons.
Yeah. You threw me off because I was like, and a person, especially on some of these old accounts, like older reportings, they obviously know what a flame looks like.
Right.
You know, oh, that was definitely a lantern or whatnot, and especially with these abandoned train tracks and stuff, there's not going to be little pockets of things.
Right. Well, light phenomenon we see it in paranormal investigations. We'll see everybody, there's a vast amount of people out there do not believe in orbs. Okay. I get it. 99.99% of those things are dust. It's dust.
Yeah.
And it's being drawn to either a vent or it's moving around as dust would when you walk through a room and all of a sudden you disturb the dust that you can't even see. It's just there. But when it comes towards you and interacts with your camera, or
90-degree turn and all of a sudden goes back the way it was going.
Yes.
That's kind of weird.
Yes, we saw that at that bowling alley. Ender's Hotel, we had some great orb activity come towards us. There's a lot of places that you get orbs that interact with you. I don't know if the what these people are seeing is it I don't know. I can imagine the trains could be a ghost train.
Yeah.
Especially the ones that are deadlines. I mean, you have ghostly mechanical apparatus appear here and there. I don't know.
Yeah.
So to kind of connect with this, out on the old highway out here, what is called the old highway is not the original highway. It actually runs the original runs through a lot of the properties out there. And we've talked to a few people that say we saw headlights, but it's not on the highway. It's at like kind of an angle of what the old highway used to run. And kind of going back to, residual energies and stuff, it could just be like a little apparition stuck in a loop, or there's just so many things that it could be.
Yeah, I like that residual energy that's there. Residuals tend to happen pretty like every night or every day, or residuals tend to happen. But so I don't know what to say with these lights. I can imagine some of them could be swamp gas, different gases, but not with as many people that have seen a lot of these lights. They're seeing them a lot.
Or the ones that are high up, like the guard station.
Yeah, so the last podcast we were talking about the Bannock Guard Station where I used to live out in Mink Creek, and these really mysterious lights that I would see out here in the trees, tree level, not human made, and I could follow them, and I did follow them a couple of times, and I could see them go out over Arbin Valley and split off into other lights, or just blink out. So, and Tim said he saw a light blink out. And, well, it did a 90-degree turn and blink out. And he's not far from the Bannock Guard Station.
He sure isn't.
No.
It was an interesting experience.
Yeah. So I've seen things. Now we have satellites, and we have a lot of them. So when the things are moving and they're tracking in the sky, about every 15 minutes you can see a satellite pretty much. But they're not doing a 90-degree. They're on a course. And you can watch them move across the sky. You can watch them. And we're not talking about a shooting star. It's completely different. These lights either split apart, or they're blinking. They're changing colors. And they move.
Well, whomever's listening to this, wherever you may be, I triple dog dare you to go outside one night when it's pleasant temperature and you don't have to complain about temperature
Not
things.
minus 25 like we had this week.
But spend an hour and look at the stars. I don't think people do that anymore.
No.
And it's amazing what you see.
Well,
I don't think a lot of people can, depending
they
on their
don't
location.
light pollution.
Yeah.
That's true.
I was just going to bring up there's certified areas in the world that are called certified dark places, and it's on a scale from 1 to 5. And I'm not sure that America has any more 5s, but we have 4s. And there's a place in Texas when you're leaving Childress and you're driving towards Wichita Falls, and it's in between, and then you head south, so it would be south, yes. And there's a park out there, and it's a certified 4 category for an observatory out there.
Oh my gosh.
I absolutely cannot describe how dark that is. Because we went for a particular stargazing thing that they were having there one night, and when they had no lights, because they didn't want any lights, so they had no lights on. There's no lights for an hour in any direction coming into this place. When you get out of your car and you slam that door shut and the light turns off, you can't see your feet.
Yep.
I'm like, oh my God, you can't see anything. You have to have a flashlight to walk into the building. You cannot see anything. And it's so dark and the stars are so vast. I remember being a little kid and with my dad, and we were in the Mojave Desert somewhere, and we were sitting and looking at the Milky Way and how spectacular it was. It was so dark and the stars were so bright. And I think there's not a lot of people out there that see that anymore.
No.
The last time I really did was Island Park at a scout camp. And that was years and years ago. But the Milky Way was spectacular.
It's a whole, like, going out and looking at the stars on any given night, you can appreciate them if you're away from most light pollution, like the majority of us are here. But when you get into these wilderness areas or these, dark areas, it is a whole different feeling. And so that kind of just makes me think of these older reports. They probably wouldn't say a whole lot to people. They probably were like, I don't want them to think I'm crazy or something.
Well, yeah, and they didn't have as much light pollution back then. So the mid-1800s, when they're seeing weird dancing lights, that was really a weird dancing light. They didn't know what it was.
Well, that's the part that I was going to bring up. I think that back then especially, less light pollution, they saw stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like...
I don't want to get institutionalized, so I'm just gonna, or like have the local preacher come out and try to exercise
me. Yeah. So there's, I do think that UFOs have been here forever, a lot longer than probably we've colonized the planet, right?
Yeah. There's even in hieroglyphs and stuff. There's some evidence in different
different cultures,
borderline extinct cultures, or yeah. There's things out there.
So people are 1800s seeing these spooky lights. I don't know that those are necessarily UFOs, but I bet they were seeing them.
And they decided that that's not the weirdest thing they've seen today.
Yeah.
That's, we each have our denial to take in each day, I guess.
Oh, yeah. Or just, I'm not even going to... I'm so stressed right now, I'm not going to address that right now. I'm just no.
Schedule it in about 42 years.
Yeah. I'm going to tell my great-great-grandchildren.
So, I know... I have seen the Marfa lights. I don't know if anybody out there listening has seen any of these lights. All these locations were in the United States. But there are these light phenomenon all over the world. It's not just United States. So there's different things out there, and interestingly, when people call because they have a haunting, sometimes they say they see light. They'll see lights moving through a room or whatnot, and it's not Are these lights hauntings? I don't know. The one that's interesting by Oklahoma on the Trail of Tears, that's kind of fascinating because you wonder if that has something to do with the Trail of Tears itself and the souls lost on that trail. But the other ones, I don't know. Some of them are in locations where we had battle activity. I do know that it was fairly common. I lived very close to Gettysburg, and Gettysburg is it's built up all the way around the park. Like it's just city. It's just chaos everywhere. And then you get into Gettysburg, and it's like it all just peels away, and it's quiet, and you're in there, and people have recorded all kinds of light phenomenon within the park.
Well, there's a crazy one that was on YouTube a few years ago, where you actually saw the full body apparition of a soldier going into the
trees or something.
Into the trees. It was crazy.
Yeah. I think probably just about anybody who goes in there at night will find evidence of haunting in there. Mm-hmm. Either you're going to get a light phenomenon, you're going to get a photograph of something bizarre, you're going to get a mist, you're going to get an EVP. I mean, you didn't have that many thousands of people die at one location without residual hauntings.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, those lights are very common in those places. Mm-hmm. People, several years ago, I went back to Shepherdstown, which is considered one of the most haunted places in the world. And I spent a week in Shepherdstown, West Virginia. And I took a lot of my gear with me. It was for work, but I took my gear, and every night I was out ghost hunting. Mm-hmm. And boy, does that place crazy. And very close to there is Harper's Ferry, which was very pivotal in the Revolutionary War. Mm-hmm. And people within Harper's Ferry, there's a convergence of rivers there. They see a lot of light phenomenon in there. And I did get an apparition going up one of the old narrow staircases up towards the church in Harper's Ferry. So, and my boss was with me, and he's like, wow, that's really cool, because he didn't believe in anything until he was with me ghost hunting almost every night. It was a work trip, and so I told him I was bringing my gear. Yeah. So it was pretty cool. He got really into it. He was really cool. It was really cool. But Shepherdstown, West Virginia is a fascinatingly haunted place. But getting back to this light phenomenon, I don't know how many people have seen lights and they've just went, oh, well, I didn't see that. I bet you most of us have seen a light phenomenon at some time or another, moving either through the sky.
That's refraction.
Right. or through the trees.
Or someone up there walking, or a car.
Yeah, most of these lights, when you see them, they're so much bigger than a headlight would portray. And they're so much bigger than a flashlight. They're huge. They're huge.
Well, there's a difference between an orb light and a flashlight.
Oh, yeah.
A flashlight, it kind of blinds you, and you're there.
Yeah.
An orb, it's a light, and it's moving.
And it's illuminating what it's against.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's like, when I saw these balls of light in Mink Creek here, they were changing colors, and the pine trees around the orb as it's moving through, it's lighted. Mm-hmm. And then obviously it's not casting a light down like an landing lights from an aircraft. They're casting light all around. And so there's no light. If they came up above the pine trees, there's no light coming down to the tops of the pine trees. If they were in the pine trees, there's light just around them, just around the pine tree branches. But
it's not some.
It's not. Yeah, it's not like a light somebody's screwing with. And like I said, there's no slope for this light. It's not like somebody was up there on a slope and I could see it. These are trees without a slope behind them that I could see. And then when it was a slope, it was moving at the treetop level. Mm-hmm. So I think most of us have probably seen something, and our brains just don't register it, or we don't want to deal with it. We're like, nope, I did not. I'm not dealing with this.
Denial is really easy.
Yeah.
And you're just thinking, oh, yeah, probably just turned right, or just something caught. Just even not purposely dismissing it to dismiss the unknown, but just kind of probably just...
Mm-hmm.
Well, how many times in your life have you been walking down a hallway and gone around a corner and you see someone out of the corner of your eye and you look and nobody's there?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It just happens so much that you check it to, okay, well, that happened. Let's continue.
Yeah.
It's...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Well,
so Oops, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a confession to make.
Uh-oh.
So when I was writing down what we were doing for podcasts, I did not write down Marfa, but I did write ghost lights.
Okay.
So, in the theater, there's a ghost light. And the ghost light has been around since the beginning. And it was basically because there's an orchestra pit, and they didn't want people to fall in, and so there's just a little kind of a gas light, so you could kind of see where it is.
Oh, okay.
Well, because everybody is superstitious in that particular field, it turned into something a lot bigger.
Oh.
And so there's a lot of theaters that have some sort of ghost light that's on all the time. So they can appease the ghosts, and so that they can perform on the stage, so they have good luck.
Oh,
okay.
That's really interesting. Did not know that.
Huh. And it continued into even movie theaters.
Oh.
So, like, a lot of times when incandescent bulbs were around, when they had the movie projector plugged in, it would give off what they call a ghost light. And so the ghost light, especially nowadays, what electricians call it, like my LED light up there, when I turn it off, it's on just a itty bitty bit, and they call it a ghost light.
Oh, okay.
So I digress. Those movie projectors would always be on a little bit, and so they'd always leave those on so they could appease the spirit, so they'd have good luck with their releases.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
So it turns out when you have really bad handwriting,
You're researching the wrong thing. Yeah, that's funny. Well, as always, we appreciate your time. Thank you for listening to Speaking of Spirits, and we would love to hear from you. We do upload our podcast as well on YouTube, and if you hear a podcast and you've had any of these experiences, been to these locations, please shoot us a message on even YouTube. We read them, we enjoy them, and we'll get back to you.
subscribe,
Subscribe, like us on Facebook.
Share.
Yeah, subscribe on Instagram. We're just about everywhere but Twitter. We're not tweeting very much anymore, but everywhere else.
Woohoo.
Woohoo!